Two good friends of mine. They've been kind enough to join me for today, and they actually joined me on a very short notice. We're gonna try and explain the story of the freedom of Israelites from the land of Egypt. We're gonna try and give it to you from a very different perspective, not the Sunday school, the happy version. It's not gonna be like that. We're gonna try and relate it to the human experiences, and we're gonna see and pull it off. Alan actually asked me to make some notes, but I didn't. But we're gonna try and do something that is akin to performing a trapeze act without a safety net. You know the trapeze act where if you go to a circus, you see gymnasts flying and swinging. But we don't have a safety net. So we're gonna see if we can deliver it to you in a very different perspective that you don't usually get in elsewhere. Right? It's gonna be more from philosophical standpoint. And Alan said probably the children won't understand, but I told him that the children are much more intelligent than we think. So we're gonna try and do it for you. All right? All right. So just a recap. So what happens with the Israelites? You know the Israelites, right? Israelites. What does the word Israel mean? No one tells you this. The word Israel means the one who wrestled with God and men. Right? Okay. So now the Israelites are actually in the land of Egypt. Now, why are they there? We'll go a bit before that. So what happens is, Jacob has his son Joseph. Joseph is sold to slavery by his brothers. He goes to the land of Egypt. He saves them. He predicts the famine that inflicts the land of Egypt. Right? So the Pharaoh is actually very, very happy with Joseph. So he lets Joseph be in the most highest position. But then now a new Pharaoh comes along. And the new Pharaoh has actually forgotten about all the favors done by Joseph to the people of Egypt. Now the Egyptians, right, they're very, very afraid of the Israelites, the descendants of Joseph. Why? Because Israelites are actually very peculiar creatures. Because apparently, even though Egyptians were very, very afraid of the Israelites, the problem with the ability that the Israelites had was that if they were confronted with more problems, they grew stronger. It goes back to the phrase, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's like that. So Egyptians tried to actually suppress all the abilities of the Israelites, but they couldn't. Well, now that's more and more threatening to the power of the Pharaoh, right? So God saw that, because if you remember, I don't know if you've read the whole story, but when God promised Jacob, Abraham, that their descendants will be like the stars, like there have been so many descendants of you. So God saw that the Israelites were being suppressed. And that's not a good thing, because you know, if God did promise you that you would have thousands of children, what you would expect is that, okay, everything is going to be good, everything is going to be fairies, unicorns, there's going to be rainbows everywhere, because God promised your ancestors that you're going to be having a lot of children and you're going to be led to the land of milk and honey. Right? Because look, if God comes to me and tells me, Alan, I will give you 1,500 descendants. Okay, God said that, you know, probably this will work out for me and I better listen to him, right? But it isn't that easy. So the new Pharaoh comes and God appoints Moses as the new leader of the Israelites. And actually he sends Moses to the Pharaoh to convince him, okay, look, Pharaoh, you got to let the Israelites go. There's been enough of tyranny. Now we can't. This can't go on. But the Pharaoh doesn't listen. It's very peculiar for the Pharaoh to not listen. Why? It took Pharaoh 10 plagues to realize that I should let the Israelites go. And the plagues were not trivial, to be honest, because the plagues were very, very devastating and brutal. Because one of them was killing of the firstborn. Imagine if in your land, all the firstborn in every family was killed. Imagine that. Like, one of the plagues is enough to set you straight. Okay, I should probably not be doing what I'm supposed to do. But then it took Pharaoh 9 plagues of the same level to understand that I should let the Israelites go. Another one of the plagues was infliction of the release of locusts into the land of Egypt. So what do locusts do? You know, those insects, they just eat all the grains. Now what happens if all the grain is gone in the land? There's starvation. There's starvation. People are dying of starvation. And another one of them was the blood in the water in the rivers, they turn to blood. Like, what is that, right? Because if something like that happens to me, that's enough. Like, if I see that water is turning to blood, okay, you know, probably God is real and I should let the people go. So it is, you know, very interesting, because it is not enough that one bad thing happens to you and that's enough to set you onto the path that is right. No, it's like, okay, I did a mistake. Probably you will have to do that same mistake 10 times to understand that probably you should not do that, because everyone is guilty of that, right? You get scolded for the same thing 15, 20, 50 times, and then the 100th time, probably, God willing, you'll understand, okay, you know what? It's time to not do that particular thing anymore. And it's all right, right? That's the Pharaoh. That's the Pharaoh in all of us, right? It's not enough for 10. It's not enough. One thing is not enough. Probably not even two. You probably need more than 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or probably even 10 takes to understand that. Okay. Now it's better to rectify my current behavior, and probably that will make my life better. All right. So the interesting thing, now the Israelites have gone into the desert, because that's what the calling is, right? God said, leave the land of Egypt and go into the wilderness. And you will go into the wilderness, and eventually I will lead you to the land that is flowing with milk and honey. Now why is that? If someone told you, okay, look, you're being tyrannized, your freedom is taken away, I'm going to show you the path. I'm going to take you where you will find enough food, water, where your descendants will multiply. And this is a very interesting notion from Dr. Jordan Peterson's video it's a very interesting idea, because I got to give credit to the man. He said, there is nothing more luring to a starving population than the land flowing with milk and honey. Right? So the Israelites are in the desert. Well, they start complaining, right? Because obviously, like I said, if God said, go into the wilderness, right, so that I can lead you to the land of milk and honey, you will think that, okay, God asked me to go into the wilderness, to go into the desert, I will be taken care of, there would be no harm that will befall me, and that is the faith. Right? Right? Because you think that everyone thinks that, okay, it's going to be a happy ending, it's going to be a happy process. Doesn't turn out like that. So the problem is, they are faced with starvation, they are faced with hunger, they are faced with wars, and they start complaining. And you know what they say? These ungrateful Israelites, in some sense, they say it was better to stay in the land of Egypt. Because in the land of Egypt, they said that at least I had food to eat. I wasn't going to die of starvation. At least I had food to eat. There was water. I know everything where everything was. I know everything that belonged to that certain place. I knew there was a structure. There was no uncertainty in my life. Right? And you think that, okay, you know, probably there is some sense to it, right? Probably it was better to be tyrannized by the Pharaoh than to get lost in the wilderness and probably die of starvation. That is the exchange. But then, obviously, God provides them with manna, the food from the heavens, the water from the rock, and then the war with the Amalekites. He actually helps them win the war too. Okay, now, in this process, Moses is called upon the Mount Sinai. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I think it's Mount Sinai where the 10 commandments were given, I believe. So, the 10 commandments, right? Okay, so now Moses was gone for a few days away from the people of Israel. Now the Israelites started getting, you know, they started losing their belief. So what happens when you start losing your belief in the middle of the desert? You've left everything that you had. Now you're in the middle of the desert. Now you started losing belief in what led you into the desert. Okay, now what happens there? They start worshipping false gods. You know the false god, the golden calf, right? So what they do, how do they make the golden calf is that they take off all their golden ornaments and they'll melt it and they'll make it into a golden calf. And you know what God said? Go back to the people, for they started worshipping the false gods. Okay, so now Moses goes back to the Israelites, and you know what he does with the golden cup? He destroys it, he powders it, he mixes it with water, and he makes the Israelites drink that water. How does it make sense? Like, why would you drink the powdered false god? So I actually thought about it yesterday before I gave this. I was thinking of giving this. It's not a talk, it's like a discussion, right? So what does that mean? It's like looking back into the past and consume it and get rid of it. That's how I see it. So it's like, I did something stupid, it's so embarrassing that I don't want to look back. That's what made sense to me. It's like, okay, it's like, 10 years ago I did something, I said something that I shouldn't have, and then I'm afraid to look back and see what I did wrong. Because if you can't look back and think what was wrong, you can't really correct yourself. How do you really correct yourself? What is the human corrective process? The behavior corrective process. Okay, I did this, and I'm going to look back, I'm going to analyze what things did I do that was so stupidly wrong that landed me in trouble. That is the rule, that is the criteria. And then through that, you'll try to arrive at a conclusion which will at least not land you in that same situation. And that is the prayer. I hope to God that this time this works for me. Right? Alright, so that's how I see it. Well, they start worshipping the false gods. Okay, so skip a bit more to the future. It took them 40 years, by the way, to reach the land flowing with milk and honey, to reach Canaan. Now, 40 years is a long time. Imagine leaving everything, because 40 years is like, you're not even 40 years, I'm 26, I just turned 26 last week. It's like 14 more years of that. So 40 years is not it's not a short time, it's more like, so what do you mean that I had a discussion with Alan and Nitin in the car on our way here. We were talking it out, So we tried to make sense of it, because probably it takes you 40 years where you want to be. It takes you 40 years to get to where you want to be. That's what that is. Okay, now what if you decide that, okay, I don't want to spend 40 years I don't want to spend 40 years walking towards where I want to be. Now what do you do that? What are you going to do? Be a sitting duck and let the bull feed you? Nah. You're still going to move. What if the movement goes away? I used to work at a service station as a student, right? I used to pull the night shifts. Very interesting, on one of the dirtiest neighborhoods, Woodville. So these guys, they'll pull up in their cars at 2 a.m. in the morning to buy chocolate milk. I never understood what was that about. Why would you be awake at 2 a.m. to drink chocolate milk? And I'd get some trouble, some people do. They're just causing trouble, come in and push things around. I'd just stand there looking good. I wouldn't intervene because probably I'll get in trouble, so I don't want that. So I never understood. For the longest time, I didn't understand why would people do it. So I gained a different perspective, because that experience was necessary for me to understand. It's just that the lack of adventure. It's the lack of adventure, definitely. Let's say if you didn't have anything to do. If you didn't have anything that was worthwhile. Yeah. So let's say if you didn't have anything worthwhile that is keeping you moving forward. What do? You'll just go out and try to cause trouble. Now why cause trouble? Because that is excitement. That is something. That is why you watch the serial dramas. That is excitement. The daughter-in-law is, her hands are around the mother-in-law's neck all the time, and they're trying to land each other in trouble. So because that is adventure. So I'd say, even though it might take 40 years, but it's no reason for you to be a sitting duck and not pursue what you're supposed to pursue. Because in absence of the pursuit, you will create trouble for yourself, and that's hell. So let's not do that. So I think that's a good place to conclude. And thanks for my friends to join for the support. And guys, if you want to add anything, please.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing? So, what did you learn from the story Sharon told? Any idea? believe in God and follow His path. The path will take you to the right destination. Okay? Thank you.
Good morning, friends. So, I don't have anything much to add, but just want to ask, how is your school holidays going? How's your vacation? Are you all enjoying it? Yeah. Interesting. So, just from what Alan said and Nitin said, it's just, so did you understand the story what Alan told you? That Israelites had to go through a hardship, they had to go through the desert for 40 years, and they were complaining to Moses, they were complaining to God that their life was much better when they were in Egypt, and they were not getting enough food, they were not getting enough necessities that they want on their journey. So, what I would like to add is that in everyone's life, we are all going to have some sort of difficulties in life. So it's very natural for us to complain and to ask God, see, this is not that I want, or many of our expectations might not be met in life. Yeah, so what you can do is that you can raise it up to your parents, and your parents will be able to guide you to some extent, letting you know what is good and what is right for you at your age. And other thing is just to trust God, keep praying, and God will guide you. Because out of the whole story, what actually Alan shared, the whole point is that God guided Israelites through Moses to the land of Canaan. So in all of your life, God is going to guide you through your parents or through your elders from the church, because you are not at the right age to make the right decisions in many points in your life. So trust God, pray throughout your life, don't leave that faith in God, and trust your parents. And that's the whole Bible verses are all about. Obey your parents. That's all I would like to add. Thank you.
Talk to your parents.
Yes, if you have anything, share with your parents, because they are your actual guide. I hope you guys got anything out of this. Yeah, thank you.